Hi, good morning. My name is Raul Martinez. Welcome to the Blackletter Brunch. My guest today is Paul Shaw. Paul is an editor, teacher, and calligrapher, and is going to be telling us about Werner Schneider, the German calligrapher and typographer. Um, and this is going to be an interesting presentation. He has pieces from the Harrison collection as well as possibly the Berlin calligraphy collection.
Are we being shared, Raul?
I don't see your desktop. No, I just see your face right now.
That
Are you
was me.
sharing your screen?
I think I forgot that part of the
There you go.
but get back to
Now I'm seeing your face.
yeah, but I got to get back to the full screen mode.
Okay.
Nope. Are we good now?
No, I'm just seeing you.
Oh,
That's good, but I'm not seeing your presentation.
I'm trying to turn it into full screen mode. Run screen share. This worked 10 minutes ago. Should work now, right? No?
Yeah, no, I'm still not seeing it. So, you did you click share and then you select the application that you wanted to show, which I assume is your PDF.
Yep. All right. We're on screen share. Wait. Well, I can't select screen share after I've done full screen mode.
There you go.
Yeah,
There you
but
go. So I'm seeing your presentation, and now if you just
full screen mode.
display the PDF in full screen mode, there you go. There you go.
No, I took 3 tries. Okay. Thank you, Raul, for having me again as a guest on Blackletter Brunch. Thank everybody for coming. Fans of Werner Schneider, such as Elmo and Rachel and Carl Roars and others. This is a sort of compiled presentation of 3 different files. The first one you're going to see has got a lot of black and white images, which is unfortunate. It was a publication that Michael Clark and I did about 20 years ago to honor Werner. And due to the economics of a self-published item, it's a small booklet, and most of the images were done as black and white by Michael. Unfortunately, the booklet is out of print. I was hoping to reprint it years ago, and Michael said he no longer had the files. So what I did was I made a PDF from items I had in color, which I added to the original booklet. And so those are the first 2 things we'll see today. And then this week, I've added a third item at the end, which focuses on Werner Schneider's type designs. And it has a little bit of his calligraphy as it's related to those type designs. So that's what the cobbled together items are. So we'll start with the booklet that Michael and I did. This is the title I added in 2019. And in talking to Rachel, I was envious that she's got some original pieces of Werner's, because in my recollection is I've got a lot of stuff going back to the early 80s when I first got in touch with him, but most of them are printed pieces except for things like this, cardboard mailers with his distinctive handwriting on them. I met Werner sometime in the early days, I'm guessing about 1983, when we were doing calligraphy and graphic arts exhibitions in New York. And I was in charge and got to open all the packages from entrance. And I remember Werner was one of the entrants back then, along with Friedrich Poppel and John Stevens and others. So this is the cover of the book that Michael put together. What you're seeing there is poster about his exhibition that was in New York originally at Fordham University first time I met Werner was in 1998. And
Paul, your video seems to have frozen. Are you still there? Paul? Paul, are you still there? Paul, you're muted.
you see me now?
Yeah, I see you. Yeah, okay, now you're no longer muted. I don't know what happened there. Somehow you.
So this booklet that
Okay, so we're no longer
um,
seeing your screen. Uh,
Michael and I
could
made,
you
they said
share
it's
your
out of
screen?
print, but people want copies. The PDF that has scans of it and my additional items is available from me. And so you can read the text here. Werner was born in 1933. It says here, I have 1935 elsewhere in my notes. And online, both dates exist.
Excuse
I'm
me,
not sure
Paul.
now which is the correct, what?
Can you hear me? You're no longer sharing your presentation.
Oh, that's interesting.
There you go.
Think whoever that pop-up thing was before it interrupted the share. Are we back?
Yeah, I can see your presentation, but
Hello?
I see the toolbars at the top. Can you hear me?
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear
Okay.
me?
Yeah, you're cutting out a little bit. I think there's a bandwidth issue.
Oh, okay. Anyway, I'm not clear as to what year now Werner was born. As I said, online, I've seen both 33 and 35. And in this document, I have 33. And in another document, I have 35. He studied in Wiesbaden with Friedrich Poppel, and you'll see Poppel's influence was very strong in his work, both in his expressive work and his more classical work. He was Poppel's teaching assistant afterward. And then one of the key jobs for Schneider was working as house designer for Breitkopf and Hartel, which is a music publisher that goes back to the middle of the 18th century. And a lot of his nicest work was done for Breitkopf and Hartel covers. So the images in here, as I said, are coming from Michael's publication, and they mainly both relate just due to economics of the day. Some of them are repeated later in color. I would like to make a new version with more things in color. And I think maybe through some of the stuff at the SFPL, we might be able to do that, or anybody else's collections. So I'm going to go through these relatively quickly because they're in black and white. What you can say about Werner's work is it always impressed me from the time I first met him was that he was able to have this broad ability to do very classical letter forms, especially Roman capitals, even neoclassical capitals, as in the Bedoni Didot tradition, but also very expressive work, mainly with ruling pens. It's rare to find much of his work that's blackletter, which is a surprise. And unfortunately, my favorite piece in blackletter, I don't have it scanned, and I don't think it's in this book. It's done to honor, I think, the anniversary of Bach in 1985. It's done in a beautiful combination of secretary and fraktur. But here's an example of his fraktur. Here's an example of his neoclassical ability. And most of these are on, I think it's either Roma or the French paper with the heavy chain lines, colored paper. Example of ruling pen, you'll see more of that. which was one of his main tools. His classical capitals, ruling pen combined with a sans serif lowercase, and I'll show some attempts at a typeface in this vein later. This phrase, nulla di sine linea from Pliny, seemed to be a favorite of his. It appears in several works he did. Never a day without a line. He translated it as never a day without art. This was done for that William Morris exhibition in Texas in the early 80s. And it's really unfortunate in the black and white. You can't see some of the smaller stuff. There's a little version of this he did that's horizontal with part of the text in italic. I think I've got later in the This one is definitely at the San Francisco Public Library. This piece. And there's the Nulla di sine linea again. And that one, I believe, is at the Public Library. Oh, here's the Bach piece, 1985. This is my favorite of his Blackletter. I just love the way in which he joins some of the flourishes. If you look on the left side, the das in the third line, where it comes down, and the allen into the ungesegnets, the very last two lines, and his own name joined to the second to last line, the G there, and the long S interlocking with his capital W. So it shows you that Werner had an amazing range of abilities, even if most of his work tended to be either at the extremes of classicism and expressionism. But in between, he could do terrific fraktur, secretary hand, and certainly uncial and Carolingian, as well as italic. This is the black and white version of the piece I gave Rolo for the invitation. It's much nicer in color, which we'll see later. This is an original, so Michael must have owned this. I've only seen it in the book that he did. And it's a bit unusual for the just large letters and such a fuzzy style. But I think it's probably also a ruling pen. I don't know what I combine those two. The small stuff that doesn't fuzz and the big stuff that does. It's kind of rare to find his expressive stuff done with a broad edge tool. Most of it's ruling pen. There's one broad edge tool piece in the Central Public Library, which I've cropped for later in the presentation. And then there's this piece, and that's about all I know of. Posters, which I assume Michael owned. I don't have copies of these, but it's nice to see them in color. And what you're seeing in both of these is his semi-expressive calligraphy, but mixed with his own typefaces. In the words Kloster Eberbach in both, the typeface is his Schneider libretto typeface. The one on the right may be the oldest piece in this presentation. I think it's from the 60s. But I believe it showed up in the ITC book in 1981 in their exhibition. It's part of it, the Bach. And the typeface on that one is not his. That's, I believe, Fry's Baskerville. This one is an important one in terms of its type design, and one of my favorites is his Greek influenced sans serifs. You'll see a little more of them later. This is one of his New Year's cards. I didn't include it in color, I don't think, later. Martin Buber. And these are pieces he did, I think, directly for Michael. This one we'll see a detail later. gives you an example of his neoclassical letters, but in an italic form, which is kind of rare to see, especially for that much of the text. An example of his beautiful italic, and we'll see a page I found in a calligraphy book from the 90s, a little later, where he shows his alphabet of this style. And this influenced his Schneider Antique italic typeface, but the typeface is very different from this. I really would love to see a typeface based on his italic. It's so elegant and serene. There's a mix of his expressive ruling pen with his Greek influence sans serif. This version with a little bit of thickening in the corners. Other versions don't have. Look at the R and E and Oedipus Rex. And both of these, I think we have in color later. Bright and italic. The one on the right was probably done in the 60s based on the lettering at the bottom. I think that's type at the bottom, but some of the ones for Blackletter Brunch from the 60s are definitely lettering in the style of sans serif typefaces of the time. Both of these we'll see later in color. And part of this one, the Saint-Exupéry is in the library at San Francisco. This is his neoclassical letter forms. This one was done for Michael's I Am Dick Bin series. I think it's one of the least typical of Werner's works. I've never seen him do Lombardic capitals in outline. All right. So that's the small portfolio that Michael put together, some original pieces he owned, along with prints that he received from Werner, which I have copies of, and some of them, and so does SFPL. This is the addenda I did in 2019. I'm using Werner's typeface Sonatus from Berthold for the title. And you'll see a lot of the pieces in color now that we just saw in gray. This one for Breitkopf. And we could probably date some of these by the numbers. I haven't tried to do that. Number 5170. I was in Cambridge this summer doing some type research, and I was walking along the hallway near the reference desk. I kept stopping because I kept seeing the spines of some reference books, and it turned out they were calligraphy by Werner Schneider with Breitkopf and Hartel publications. It was amazing how just, on a row of books, I immediately could recognize his work like that. I didn't include those in this presentation. This is probably the longest example of his italic text in one of his broadsides. He's quoting Walter Keck, the Swiss calligrapher and teacher. Keck was the teacher of Adrian Frutiger, the type designer, and Frutiger was one of Werner's heroes. But this is rhythm and lettering, which is, I think, from Keck's book of 1949. And it's just an amazing bit of italic. I wish I had a better image of it. This is unfortunately a black and white image of it. I don't remember what the colors are. And there you can see how much Werner admired Adrian Frutiger. There's a quote from Frutiger, which I do not read German. But this is his Greek influenced sans serif, which it's a style where he liked to play with a slight bounce to the baseline, not an extreme one, along with some variation in the tilt of the letters and the different heights of their strokes. And we'll see this come back in the type section of the presentation. I'll say that most of what I own of Werner's, and I think probably what Michael owned, were season's greetings, and they were either broadsides, maybe an A-foot, A3 size, or smaller A4 size, usually printed in one color, occasionally in two. And fortunately, they're dated, which makes it easy to kind of figure out, when things were done. You can see there are season's greetings from Werner Schneider. And I'm not sure whether they were printed offset or silkscreen. I don't know how many copies he did for his friends and colleagues. But most of them were all about lettering and writing. Um, so, and they come from a variety of sources, whether it's practitioners like Frutiger or Keck or Paul Standard, or philosophers here like Tagore, or even statesmen like von Weizsäcker and John F. Kennedy. This one was done, I believe, yeah, for the year 2000. And you can see Werner's philosophy about the importance of the Roman capitals. I got a quote from him about them when we did our eternal letter book. So if anybody has a copy of that, you can see a fuller view of Werner's opinions about the importance of Roman capitals historically and aesthetically. What's interesting about those capitals is that they're not trade. You look at certain letter forms, I mean, they're classical Roman capitals, like, the way that R is done is very different from expecting a Trajan letter. His S's have a little more sort of movement to them. Apologize, this was a little bit more. And you'll see that in most of his designs, the layouts are free form. They're rarely centered like that last one. Usually a asymmetrical balancing of line to line. So I don't know how many drafts he did. I'm sure that we planned out meticulously. And this one, as far as I know, I think only exists in black and white. It was shown in the ITC exhibition in 1981. And this one's a little livelier in his version of Roman caps. So not quite as static as that one from 2000. And you'll notice in this one, he's put serifs on the tops of the capital M and the capital N. So in that regard, he's moving away from the Trajanic ideal. Probably his lengthiest example of a ruling pen text. Franz Kafka. I have no idea what Franz Kafka was writing about. Probably my second favorite example of his fraktur was this piece he did as a season's greetings card, mixed in with his libretto typeface. So all the white is the typeface, and all the gold and yellow is his calligraphy. This is the piece the Plato piece that we saw earlier in Michael's compendium. It's in, I think, gray on cream paper originally. And it's the most extensive example of this Greek sans serif style. And the quote from Plato becomes the sort of temporary name for the typeface that he was working on based on these letters. In this one, the typeface you're seeing, I think, Uh, well, it could be sonatas, or it could be one of the sonatas variations that he was working on in the early 2000s. That should be read and then mixed in uh, is his ruling pen writing, which says, never let a day go by without practicing. I think it's a variation on the Nulla Dies Linnea quotation from Pliny that he liked. It was probably the first piece I saw of his that really blew me away back in the 80s for Breckhoff and Hartel, the combination of the Roman caps and that italic. It's a little spikier, this italic, than you saw in the Walter Keck quote, or you'll see in the in a variation of the Paul Standard quote later. But everything on here was done by Werner, except for maybe the logo for Breitkopf. What impresses me about this piece for Breitkopf, and there's a companion one to it, is the Q in Don Quixote. The way he's angled at that extreme angle, which makes the whole thing sort of hold together and gives it a focal point. One thing that's interesting about his work with the ruling pen is I don't think Werner did retouching or cut and paste it like myself and others have done with expressive letters. I think he sort of just did it and then picked out the one that looked the best. And so you find all sorts of things that you might say, well, couldn't you fix that or fix this other thing? But this is one where, I wish the O in Don was more obviously an O, but, the Q and the X in Quixote is so wonderful that I'll forgive him for that. I suspect this is from the 60s. I don't have a date on this. Everything on it is lettered by Werner on the front. The spine is not. The spine is type. This one was reproduced, I believe, in the ITC exhibition. Dance, ballet, and pantomime are the three words. We're having trouble figuring them out. And it's kind of rare to see a flourish by Werner with a ruling pen, that second L in ballet that was past the second T. Here's a piece that I gave Raoul to promote the talk today, which I chose because it has this combination of extreme, the expressionism and the simplicity. So when I look at it, I think the typeface is a heavy weight of Futura and not one of his own typefaces, much to my surprise. This is 1994, so he may not have started work on his sans serif at this point. But the contrast of weights and scale and expressivity and calmness, I think, is wonderful in this piece. And also the way in which he's managed to justify the rhythmic lines with the type lines. Another one of his ruling pen pieces. This one you saw in black and white in the Michael Clark booklet. Here it is in color. I don't know how many of these he did for Breitkopf. I've only seen, I think, 4, but they all seem to have the same calligraphic style of a uncial letter form or semi-uncial letter form as a main title, and then sometimes a Carolingian influenced smaller text. And this one you also saw in black and white earlier. It's much more exciting when you see it in color, even if it's just one color. And this one has these Greek sans serifs, but in this case, not made carefully or drawn, but very ragged, clearly made with a ruling pen as opposed to a regular pen, but just as lively. And once again, you can see, what's nice, I often like about his work is that his letters will sometimes be perfectly crisp on the edges and other times rough. And in both versions, I find them to be quite stunning and beautiful. I don't remember now what this came from. Oh, I think this might have been from, he sent me a lot of material in 2009, which we'll see, which were photocopies. And as far as I can remember, and I can tell from what I've got scanned, they were all related to type designs that he was working on. And so this one might actually have been one of the influences for his typeface Sunetta, which we'll see later. All right, that's the end of my addition to Michael's booklet. The rest of the presentation focuses on his type designs because we didn't include those in the original booklet or in my addendum. And I thought that would be important because Werner's work included type design, especially after the late 80s. And when I wrote about him, both for Michael's booklet and for Baseline magazine, I referred to Werner as the last of the Schriftkünstlers. And Schriftkünstler is one word in German, I know. It's a lettering artist. And it's a very broad term in German because it refers to people who are calligraphers, people who are letterers, and especially people who are type designers. And I thought of Werner, the last of a certain generation of people trained in that broad way in schools. Hermann Zopp certainly is part of that tradition. Friedrich Poppel, Werner Schneider, not Schneider, Rudolf Koch. So what you're going to see here are Werner's typefaces. I put them in groups, and some of them the dates are definite because they were released by either Berthold or by Linotype. And the others are things that he was working on at least in 2009. And those are the only dates I have for them, though I'm sure they were started long before 2009. And I really don't know what he did between then and the time he died. They didn't get released. But whether he continued working on them, I really have no idea. Maybe Katerina and I could find out from his widow. I don't know what he did this for. It was an item he sent to the calligraphy and lettering the graphic arts exhibitions in the early 80s. It was a label. And I just always loved it, but its letter forms, other than swashes, are certainly predecessors of his Schneider Antiqua typeface, his first typeface. And these are some of the proofs from that typeface. The comments are not Werner's. They're Gunther Gerhard Lange. Lange was the art director or type director at Berthold from the early 50s, I think until his death, 2011. Though Berthold, by the time Lange died, was no longer a German company, but an American-owned one. But when Werner began to do work for them in the early 80s, they were still a German company, and they were known for their high quality of their typefaces. And so later on, they would talk about Berthold quality or BQ, and they began to label their digital fonts with a BQ prefix or suffix if you want to know what that Q stands for. It stands for quality. You can see this is 1985, the date on here. And I can't read Lange's comments, but he was a stickler for things. And Werner, in letters to me, said that his typefaces were better because of Lange's persnicketiness. He really appreciated all his tiny comments. And I suspect one reason why his post-Berthold faces aren't as good, or might be because he didn't have a Lange to pick on him. So Schneider Antiqua was his first typeface, and it's a stunning typeface. And I think it's one of the most beautiful typefaces of the 20th century. Only the lightweight has old style figures and small caps. The other weights don't. It's ripe for extension. So I'm just going to run through the weights, but what I always love about it is the way he's got these really full curves. I mean, they're sexy, they're gorgeous. His lowercase a might owe something to Fry's basketball, which has a beautiful A like that with the curves. It's like, for a first typeface, it's like there's nothing you can complain about. It's astonishing. There's the italic, and it clearly comes from his italic calligraphy, but the letter forms are wider, and most likely due to needing to fit in with the Roman, but also to be able to be sized digitally, because his calligraphic italic is narrower. But he liked that H with the hooked leg, which is the original form of italic H's epigraphically. So here are the weights, and not too many of them. Not overdone with typefaces today. No black, there's no ultra black. His second typeface was quite a surprise. It was what based on neoclassical letter forms, that is, letter forms, of the era of Bedonian Didot, with more high contrast between thick and thin. But in his calligraphy, the coldness that everybody associates with those typefaces is totally gone. He's managed to make these letter forms, their high contrast, much warmer and much more friendly. This is the Saint-Exupéry piece, which we saw in black and white. It's not easy to see in this image I've got, but it's a dark red on gray paper. I think there's a copy of the SFPL. This is not a scan, it's just a photograph. And this is also a photograph. I believe it's dark blue on gray with a light gray printing. But there's the italic that goes with the neoclassical. And look at how beautiful his double S is in the second to last line. And that GK combination, just lovely letters. So I've got some comments from him about some of these typefaces that came, I guess, with those photocopies he sent me. And I've pulled some quotes out. Many of the classical style here he's referring to neoclassical letters from my hand, especially those from the Hero Note pen, which I believe is a pointed pen nib. It's blue, I think. I don't usually do pointed pens. Show a certain closeness to Sonatus's formal language. Writing with this pen was the most important tool in the process of form finding for me. In contrast to broad nib pens, this elastic writing instrument leads to a more sensitive result. I think it's referring to how you can, make that quick change from a thin line to a very thick line. Werner's English was not very good, but way better than my German. And so sometimes I'm trying to figure out exactly what he's saying in some of these comments. The detail of his work in this vein, so you can see the subtleties, especially the swelling he got in the thick strokes, which is not in the typeface. There's a lot of things which disappeared with typeface, like the long tails of the A. The one thing which is here that he continued with the typeface is that he didn't go for the heavy ball terminals that we associate with neoclassical typeface. He went more for a simple lobe and teardrop. Look at the A and the C, or even the ear of the G, you can see what I'm talking about. A markup by Longa. And I believe that small thing in the corner is probably a piece of film or a printout that must have been added to the photocopy. You can see things like, one thing I can read here is, he wants this to be fatter. He wants this part to be bigger. He doesn't like this, Mr. Longa. He wants something to change in the symmetry of the team. So here's the typeface. And I never really warmed to it originally. I always liked Schneider Antiqua. Michael used it, I think, in maybe some of the scripts that he edited. But and I think he used it for the text for the booklet. And then the more I began to look at it, the more I realized that it's a really nice typeface for text. As a display side, I think it needed something a little closer to his calligraphy. But in a text side, it's a terrific typeface. It works very well. It doesn't have some of the problems that Bodoni or Didot do, because he kept the hairlines from being too thin, and he gave it a little more liveliness to it. And you can see those terminals that are not fully ball terminals are a little rounder than the teardrops of the calligraphy. There's a reminder of the details italic. You can see the grain of the paper and some of the rough edge. It's not the pen's rough edge, I don't think. I think that's the chain marks. Here's the italic of Schneider Libretto Light. And then here are the other weights. And surprised me when I was putting this together was how much I liked the heavier weights. The typeface really seemed to have held up as it got heavier. Maybe in some ways I kind of like it better. Even in this bold weight. This is a detail from that Kennedy quote that I showed you earlier, as a lead-in to talking about typefaces that Werner did that were based on classical Roman capitals. So this is part of what he sent me, where he said that GGL, which is Gunther Gerhard Lange, called me one day to say, Schneider, we are going to make a classical serif type with the name Inscriptur. And I want classical capitals straight out of your hand. Got it? He was determined and concise in his language, mentioning orientation on the Arch of Titus model. I responded, how about an orientation on the Trajan inscription? He replied, no. Carol Twombly and Adobe has already done an excellent typeface based on that. It's good. We don't need another Trajan. And so the inscription on the Arch of Titus begins with the word Senatus Populus, which gave the typeface its name, Senatus. And his typeface is not, as I said earlier, the Trajan form that Carol did for Adobe. This must be some of the earliest letters he did for it. You can see the white paint, even though this is a photocopy that he sent me, two pages I've put spliced together. And so he hasn't decided what he's going to do about the 5 and the 3. Clearly the ones on the second line were rejected. But Werner must have known these letter forms so intimately, that he could do this, immediately. I mean, it's pretty much the typeface. So here's Senatus BQ regular. It's the only 8. It has small caps and it has old style figures, and there's no lowercase. Werner apparently wanted to do a lowercase, and then he decided not to ask Lange about it because he said, no, Lange wants capitals, let's just make it pure. But I think Werner, thought of having additional weights in the typeface and a lowercase eventually. This photocopy says Inscriptur, which was Lange's title, and yet you can see that there's 4 weights. And Werner was, considering what the typeface would look like if you expanded beyond that lightweight at the top. And he had already done some calligraphic examples in a heavier classical version. You saw the full text this quotation earlier. And what's interesting about these is how he has some of the bounciness and variation that he puts into his Greek sans serif capitals. If you look at the A and the word what near the bottom, and the H before it, for instance, the W and A right below them. And he must have gotten as far as doing actual letters that were going to be typed in a very bold weight. This is dated 2001. It's, I think, the only date besides 2009 on any of these documents I have. But nothing went beyond this as far as I can tell. As I said, he made a note that he wanted to do lowercase for sonatas, and then he decided that Longa wouldn't go for it, but he must have on his own started making a lowercase, because here it is in a font that he gave me. I've got beta fonts, I guess they're called. And the capitals, I think, are not exactly the same as the Sonatas BQ, which means this might have been worked on before Sonatas BQ was released. You can see there's some alternate capitals at the bottom, a more calligraphic A and a tilted O, a wider one, and the S with a little bit different balance to it. Now, the names of these typefaces is confusing. The files I've got are beta fonts, and they've got different names, but I think that they're the same typeface. This one's called Sonora, but I think it's just a heavier weight of that Sonatas with a lower case. And this one he calls Sonatas Medium. Well, it looks like a bold to me, and the other was more like a medium. So here he's definitely given it the Sonatas name. And that 2009 date is simply the date that he sent me, the photocopies and the date that shows up on the font file, metadata. And on some of the fontographer screenshots that were included in what he sent. Here's one of these screenshots, and this one says Aeneas on it, Cyrillic and Aeneas Greek. And I don't know whether there was going to be an Aeneas font that was a variation of Sonatas. If you look, the A has that calligraphic top that was an alternate in that earlier Sonatas lowercase thing. But what's peculiar is that there's a typeface called Aeneas that John Hudson and Tiro Typeworks did, and it's based on Werner Schneider's capitals. I'm kind of wondering now whether or not Werner might have contributed to it. I have to ask John Hudson. But that's very peculiar. Or maybe John Hudson did the typeface and then asked Werner to make a Cyrillic and a Greek for it. I don't know why John would need that, because John was a specialist in non-Latin types, but this is somehow related to the Sonatas typeface. As you can see, the date on this is 2009. So here's the actual font, at least as I have it. And it's nice to see a little bit of that more pen-like letter form rather than a carved letter form, like the capital A and it's the letter after the kappa, the lambda, the alpha and the lambda. The Cyrillic, a lot of the same letter forms repeated, but he couldn't make up his mind, apparently, what he wanted to do with some more distinctive Cyrillic letters. I've put them in the order they are in the form that they normally are seen. So the fifth letter on the top line, Werner had the sixth letter as the default form. And the same with a couple other things where in this typeface, the less familiar form is the one he had as the default form. So I don't know whether he was trying to go against tradition or not, but he had three versions of that sort of psi form, 1, 2, 3, 4, the fourth line down at the beginning. The third one's very strange. And and I think he also had the idea early on when Sonatas was being developed to make a serif and a semi sans serif and a semi sans. He might have been influenced in this by Adel Eicher's Rotis typeface that came out in 1989 that had a serif, semi-serif, semi-sans, and sans versions. But here you can see he's already, you know, showing you how the three would work together. So the semi-sans is essentially an Optima-like sans serif. That is a sans serif with thick and thin, as opposed to evenly balanced strokes, which is the bottom version. And he definitely got as far as working on a Sonata Sans Light. This photographer file was in the things he sent me. You can see where he's actually drawn the outline of the letter forms over there on the right. And a lot of these he wrote in progress, keep quiet. I figured now that he's deceased and it never happened, I can quit being quiet about these fonts in progress. Did I just skip one? So he managed to get the Sonata Semi-Sans into a basic font file. In the sans also. Those are the only two versions I have, no weights. This is a detail from that Plato text to show you the raggedness of this Greek sans, as I call it, and his bounciness and change of angle of strokes. Because he worked clearly on that as a model for a typeface. What you're seeing at the top of this photocopy, which I've cut in half, is the original calligraphy from the previous slide, and below it is the same text from one of the typefaces. Here it says Plato 42. I don't know what Plato 42 is. He's got a number of typefaces with a Plato name in them, which obviously is taken from that quotation, from that broadside. It's a really nice, I think, typeface he was working on. It doesn't have quite the same character as letters done by hand. He didn't seem to want to try to copy the ragged edge, and he tried to, tame some of the bounciness. And the names of this are even crazier than the Sonatas variation names. This one's called Lappy, which I think is short for lapidar or lapidary, Schneider Light. And what he did was he had two versions of the capitals, one in the cap part of the keyboard and the other in the lowercase part of the keyboard, probably a holdover from the PostScript, even though OpenType was available by the time he was working on these. And basically, he just, changed whether or not the letters, bounced up and down in a different way. Look at the ends in both lines, or the M's, you can see the slight variations, or the O has changed the curvature a bit. And in this particular one, he had an alternate Greek Y and a Q that feels much more John Baskerville than anything else. This weight he called Plato 75. The number probably means that he was planning on having a series of weights based on Adrian Frutiger's numbering system. So 75 would have been bold, 65 medium, 55 regular. So this doesn't look very bold at all to me, but all these descriptions are arbitrary. And you'll see from these variations that the letter forms are not identical from one to the other. I mean, it's not just the weight is changing, the way in which the N's or the M's and their bounce is different. So I don't know whether he was planning on having different basic forms to deal with the change of weight, or whether he was, trying out different forms that he would then try to extend throughout an entire family. This one he called Schneider Plato, which is definitely looking a little darker. This one he called Plato Medium, which seems very strange because it's the darkest so far. We'll get darker than this. There he's got a Q that looks like it might have been influenced by the Sands by Lucas de Groot with a detached tail. In the file that I sent, the email I sent back to him regarding all these, I know I had a comment where I said, "Why are you doing a detached tail?" I don't remember what he said, what he responded. He might have just said, "Well, I like it." And here it is in what he calls the bold weight, Schneider Plato Bold. There's a really nice typeface here. It's too bad it's only a beta version. And then he called this one Heavy. So he actually went to a much larger family than anything that was ever produced of his at that time commercially. But it works for a sans serif letter. It's very simple, nothing complicated to deal with in heavier weights. And then I don't know where this one fits. He called it Schneider Manna. I don't know if he means manna from heaven or what the word means, something in German or some other literary reference. I think it's influenced by Roman cursive letters of those made in wax tablets, but it's hard to say. You can see once again in the capital and lowercase part of the keyboard, he's made alternate forms, which are quite nice.
It reminds me of Herculaneum.
And he may have seen Herculaneum by Adrian Frutiger and been inspired to do this. Like I said, he admired Frutiger a lot, and you'll see Frutiger's influence in the next typeface. So these, I think, were things that he may have started with the aim of having them done by Berthold, but it said Berthold became an American-owned company, and I believe it was the end of the 1990s. Longa was kept on, but I don't know if Werner felt comfortable working with him or not, because everything he did after that commercial was through Linotype. So the first thing through Linotype may have been not his choice, but it may have been his clients, because the first thing he did with them, and this is Werner, he's second from the right, sitting down and gesticulating, and that's Akira Kobayashi standing up to the right. I don't know who the other two people are. I assume people at Linotype. This is from a Linotype promotional booklet. And based on what I'm seeing on the table, he may have been talking to them about Sunetta typeface. But all I see is his calligraphy with a broad pen and a binder of his. The image below is from the Munich subway system, the S-Bahn, and that's his typeface called Vialog. And that was the first one he did with Linotype. And as I say, working with Linotype might have been a decision by the designers behind the signage system for the S-Bahn or the S-Bahn itself. I don't think Werner brought the typeface to them. He was working for the S-Bahn people or their designers. And the typeface was called Vialog, and it's heavily influenced by Frutiger's eponymous typeface that was designed for the Paris airport and then became a typeface for Linotype, and one that's used in many signage systems, including New York's Kennedy Airport. And it's my house typeface, Frutiger. But what makes this different from Frutiger is it's more condensed. He also has more classical M, showing you Werner's love of the Trajan form, but also the fact that in a condensed form, a splayed M makes a lot more sense visually. It's much more legible. And he's done a few typical signage additions, the serifs on the sans serif I and J and the hook on the L. It was originally pioneered by Edward Johnston when he was doing his typeface for the London Underground. Vialog had more weights than any of Werner's typefaces, and it's not surprising given what its purpose was for. a very nice italic that manages to maintain a bit of calligraphic influence, unlike the original Frutiger, which was simply a slope room. Frutiger was later on designed with a more calligraphic italic. I mentioned that he did a lot of these horizontal music covers for Breitkopf with a uncial letter form. And he must have wanted to do a typeface based on them. There's one sample, which you'll see in a minute, that was in the packet that he sent me. But look carefully at these. They're beautiful letter forms. But when you see the typeface, there's something subtly different about it. The smaller lettering here is Carolingian influenced, in the Herausgegeben von Klaus Beckmann and Choral. They are Beitringen letters. Here's another one, and that A is going to appear with the typeface. Whoops, sorry. So this is the only example of his attempt at this uncial influence typeface. You can see it says, he's calling it Breitkopf apparently, in progress, please be discreet. And you can see he's trying to do not just an uncial, but also his influence by the Carolingian for the lowercase there. Because this is the same text as that. But there's a clear difference, I don't know if anybody can spot it, which is that he's taken very wide letters in the uncial and he's made them much more normal in their proportion. And as nice as this is, I really kind of wish he had stuck with that wide letter form. Gave a much more lively view. If you look at the M here, look at the R and orgle work and the W. But I think Werner was aware that the typeface is a different audience and a different purpose than calligraphy. So it wasn't that somebody was twisting his arm to change the letters. I think he himself realized that he needed to make them a different way. I think today, maybe he would think differently, as OpenType since 2003 has made it easier to do more, calligraphically influenced and handwriting influenced typefaces with alternate forms and contextual alternates. So you can have something that's, traditional and something a little livelier. Have your cake and eat it too sort of approach. I mentioned that his italic, I came across this in I think it's an Australian calligraphy book. The only reason I had it, because my work is in it, and I was surprised to find Werner's work in it a year or two ago when I was flipping through it. Two separate pages that I've combined here to show his sample alphabet. And it's pretty much what is in some of those broadsides. And he must have wanted to make a typeface based on this, maybe even before he did Schneider Antiqua, because the date on this photocopy is 1978. And I don't think that's just an accident. I don't know why there's two different tonal values in this. There's two pieces that he must have combined together. But the top one indicates that he was copying something for one of his Breitkopf and Hartel covers. And then down below, I think, is an actual typeface based on, actually, I think both of them are typeface, is the typeface. And so at the top, you've got a sample usage, and at the bottom is the character set. And what distinguishes this from Schneider Antiqua's italic is that there are swash characters. And it'd be nice to either add swash characters to Schneider Antiqua italic or to create a new Schneider italic typeface, especially for the capitals. I'm not sure where this fits. As I said, a lot of these things are undated. This is a composite photocopy he made. I think it was intended as a presentation to Linotype for doing a typeface. And I think he was probably trying to say to them, okay, you can have italic with a broad edge tool. I think that's a carpenter's pencil he might have used at the top, and then just a regular pencil for a linear design, and then a ruling pen, and then a brush. And I realized when I was looking at this that I've rarely seen any brush work from Werner. It's almost all ruling pen. But the brush, I think, is here because it became the basis for the Sonetta typeface. Just to show you some of his other loose expressive work. This is early Breitkopf and Hartel music cover, a rare one that's vertical, and a very unusual ruling pen one in its angularity, and not as crazy as an Escapade one. I had trouble reading the second line a couple of days ago. Then I realized he didn't put the dot on the I in Symbolo. That's a C and an I, not a lowercase a as a capital. And all the black text is lettered by him. If you look at it, you'll see how it's not as stiff as the sans serifs of the early 60s. Probably influenced by Carl Georg Pfeffer's permanent typeface, is my guess.
You know who I see there is Nerdinger, Eugen Nerdinger.
Eugen Nerdinger, the German, yeah, he did all those beautiful books in the 50s.
Yeah.
Maybe.
There's just a little.
I'm sorry, is that Carl talking?
Yes.
But also, this may have been influenced by Popple, because some of Popple's early work he sent me in the 80s had this mix of Helvetica-like letter forms and expressive calligraphy. This was what he sent me when we got married, just to show you his handwriting. And then here is one of his broadsides. This one, I believe, is at the Public Library in San Francisco. And he could control his ruling pen writing at different levels. I mean, he could make it, very simple and slightly looser and then wild. I kind of like it at this level. A detail from one of those few examples. This is the SFPL, where he's using a broad tool to get that work. And you can see another version of his Greek influence sans in between the larger letters. I think green and black are the colors in the original. This is from the packet of photocopies, and I think this was part of his presentation or his influence for the Sonetta typeface. That other piece that was in the extended version of the Michael Clark booklet might also be from that. Now, I don't know whether he did a Bach and Mozart cover for Breitkopf and Hartel or not, or he just was using that as words to test out the brush for a script typeface. This photo, I'm sorry for the pixelization that occurred, is from Linotype's PDF about Werner Schneider, and that he's clearly working on the capital A's for the Sonetta typeface in this image. Because he used those A's for one of his greeting cards in 2006. And as I said, it's really too bad they didn't take advantage of OpenType. OpenType had become commonly used by 2003. And Sonetta would, I think, benefit from having alternates in it. The typeface in the middle in red is his libretto typeface from Berthold. So here are some photocopies of paste-ups he did, kept working on the letter forms for Sonetta. And you can see how many variations he made of certain letters. So he could have easily, done a set of alternates. And the last couple slides are the Sonetta typeface. It comes in 3 versions: Flair, Charm, and Magic. And I've tried to put them in the sequence of going from the most calm to the most wild. Sometimes you can mix them together. Other times they don't work mixing them. And I keep wanting to have alternates available. I was going to use the typeface for the part of the title of this talk, but I just gave up because I kept having too many duplicate letters that looked, it lost their quality once they were repeated. But individually, they're really nice typefaces, especially the Flare and the Charm. I have no idea where the names of the typeface came from. And this is a crazy one, the Magic. I don't know why he accepted that capital B. It's a very strange looking letter. So I want to thank Michael Clark, he and I were big Werner Schneider fans for ages, and then we put that little booklet together. Werner himself, who died 2 years ago, Katerina Pieper, who helped with Werner's translation back in 1999 in New York, and the Public Library of San Francisco, where I got to see their collection of Werner's work in August of this year.
Yeah,
So I'm ready for any questions or any comments or additional information people can share.
Well, maybe I can say something.
sure.
Can
Elmo?
you? Yeah, that's me. Um, so maybe I know that he worked a lot with the Hero Note pen. So you also had something in the slides, and it's a kind of a pen for musical notation, I think. And I'm not sure if you can see it, but it's a very it's a bit rounded and it's very flexible.
Yeah, I think you need to hold it just a little further,
Yes.
further away. There you go. Perfect.
So it's very difficult. But it's a bit round. It has a kind of a rounded top, and it has two ink splits, and it was made for musical notation. What I know, and it's very flexible. And he also made, for instance, the capitals like that. He did it, I think, very slowly. And
That's what he was saying about the neoclassical ones, Elmo, that he used the Hero Note pen.
yes, that's this one.
Yeah.
So that's for musical notation, I think. And it's
So because
uh,
it has a rounded edge, it's a little easier to work with than if it was really pointed, right?
yes, it's not completely pointed. It's something between pointed and broad edge nib, and because it's rounded, you can make the little dots when you do musical notation, and you can make the finer lines, you know. So and it's wonderful to work with. So if calligraphers want to try this, you have to find them as vintage, but these are so wonderful to write with.
Do you think they were named after Hero Road, the type designer and calligrapher?
Now, Hero,
There,
I
there was
think.
a there was a man with that name who was a German calligrapher and type designer.
No, it's just Hero with Hiro. So it's the brand which also made the other also British pens and
And then there was a typo in his email to me.
yes, it's just Hiro, not Hiero. That's a typo.
Ah, okay. I took that from that text from his email.
Yes, yeah, I
Oh
know.
yeah, so I probably where I was thinking he was using a ruling pen for some of the light script writing that doesn't have a lot of contrast. Those were probably the Hero pen too then.
Yeah, he worked a lot with his Hero pen. And what I also know is that what he said to me when he also wrote a lot with for his expressive work, not only with a ruling pen but also with a radius pen, turned upside down.
Which is one of the techniques that Michael Clark used to do.
Yeah. So Werner Schneider did that also a lot. What he explained to me.
I think that might be the broad pen looking ones that I showed you. Might be
Yeah.
the pen upside down.
Yes, probably. Yeah. So, well, just some.
I see his Paul Standard vertical piece behind you.
Yeah. that's a piece I got. I have several more, but this is my favorite.
Does
Yeah.
anybody have a horizontal version? Because that one has part of the text in italic of his.
This is also has also an italic alphabet,
Right, but
and
that's
on the well, I can show you on the back you see a big italic with a broad, maybe with a wooden stick or whatever. I can show. I hope you can see it.
not so close. Oh yeah,
Oh, that's beautiful.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah, but there's
very
another
happy with
version
this.
of this where it's horizontal and he has the text in italic part of it. Uh,
Okay, yeah.
it's printed on a cream paper.
Yeah, this is I'm glad it is an original.
Oh, that's an original, not a print?
Yes. Yeah, yeah, that's an original.
Oh,
It's
wow.
it's on Fabriano Roma paper.
Yeah, I think yeah, he liked Fabriano Roma.
Yeah, yes, yeah. So, well, just for information.
No, no, thank you.
Well, thank you,
Okay.
Elmo.
I hadn't
Yeah.
thought of
Okay.
a hero pen for some of those thin expressive things.
Elmo, what do you use for doing your Roman capitals? Do you use a hero note pen or something else?
Yes, well, most of the time I work with just speedball pens because they're also very flexible. I like flexible pens, and but I use this a lot, this Hero pens as well.
Mm.
So if you can find them, they're worth working with. It's wonderful. But he also worked a lot with wooden sticks, with wooden popsicle sticks or whatever. Um,
It must have worked with reeds too, I would think.
yes, so he made this with a wooden, just written with wooden stick.
But
I think that's wonderful.
it's pretty.
What is that from? What book is that
What?
from? What book is that from,
That's
Elmo?
from the catalog from Bruges.
Oh,
Hold that up toward the center,
I don't
Elmo.
think I have that.
So,
So
so
John,
it's with a lot of
Is that
calligraphy in it.
is that for the entire set of Bruges events? Is that or just for 1 year?
No, this is this is was what 1 year.
Which year was that?
The last one. No, he. Oh yeah, I've. This is one, but when he showed from several years from his collection, Jan Broes.
mm.
So there's
There's date on the book?
the date. I'm not sure the dates. Oh, 2014.
Okay, thank you. No, I just Werner did the logo for the 2002,
Yes,
uh,
that's.
which I didn't include.
No, I know that he did the logo. Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
So, okay.
sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I'm finished.
Okay.
Thank you.
Carl has nothing to say?
Paul, what kind of ruling pen did Schneider use? Do you know? Was it just a
I've not
regular, really thin ruling pen, or was it?
realized that the one thing I didn't put in this presentation was my article on the ruling pen that I did for Letter Arts Review, because the cover has his ruling pen. Rick Cusick designed the cover of that issue with Werner's work on it. And in that article, it talks about everybody's ruling pens, Popple's and Schneider's and Phil Grimshaw and Michael Clark and everybody back in 1995. I've got a PDF of that if anybody, wants. I don't remember what Werner used specifically. I think he was using ordinary ruling pens or actual drafting ruling pens. I don't think he was using homemade ones like Pablo had homemade ones that could give you really heavy lines. And it's rare to see a real heavy line in Werner's work, mainly on crossbars of T's. He's usually fairly thin. So he may have been using just pretty much ordinary ruling pens, maybe filed down, because some people would file down the tips to give them a slightly broad edge.
Yeah.
Anybody else knows better than me, or we put together for that article a photograph. I can share that PDF if people want. Want me to dig it up?
Yeah, I think it's on. Is that the one that's on your website, Paul?
Yeah, but I can dig it up for now. Hold on, let me just close down. Yeah, but we'll just find it because it has pictures of whoops, I'm sorry. I clicked on the text part of it, not the all right. Let me share the screen and go to full screen.
Oh yeah.
Hold on. See if we're back in full screen. We're back in full screen.
Yes, that's full screen.
So yeah, this is the Letter Arts reissue from 1995, and so I got photographs from people of their tools. See, like these are ones that people were filing down part of the tip of ordinary drafting pens. And I think this is a Pablo made one. Some of these are Pablo. I think they're Pablo made ones. Pablo's father in law. Forgotten whose these are. Some of these are for my collection. Well, that's Pablo's work. So you can see how much Werner took
Yeah.
from. I think Werner surpassed it when it came to the classical letter forms. And again, this was like Don Quixote, this experiment with God, and beautiful.
There was a piece that you showed, Paul, where he seemed to be transitioning between a fraktur and a ruling pen. There was a B, and then it kind of went went
Probably,
off.
probably that
His
dance,
favorite-
the dance ballet pantomime piece.
Something about Baroque calligraphy, perhaps. I don't remember. But
I have to read the text to see if it mentions what Schneider specifically used. I mean, some people told me what pens they used, and it says here in this text, the brands are everywhere, are all over the place. Charvaz, Deepskin, Hago, Clayful and Esser, Mars Statler, Otto Richter, Delta, Cobra, Celte, Kern, Thornton, Frederick, American, Swiss, Dutch, German, pens. Let's finish going through this. I'll try to find that one for you in a minute. This is, I think, Phil Grimshaw. No, this is over you, Elmo.
Yeah, that's a long time ago.
I love the way that Rick designed this to make up for the poor images.
Yeah.
it made it look beautiful. But I mean, look at the different hand positions. We can shout out to a few people who passed away, like Gottfried and Phil Grimshaw and Michael here.
Yeah.
All right, let me escape and see if I can go back and find that ballet piece. I think I know what it is. Checking
Paul
here.
also,
What?
Paul also published a book about Werner Schneider. Um,
Well, no, this is the book. This little thing with Michael Clark.
I guess that's the one. Yeah, the one that you did with Michael Clark, and that is for sale on your website.
Well, as a
I just
PDF.
put I just put the in PDF format, I think.
I mean, unless somebody's got copies, I think whatever Michael last had, I know what it is. I think he sent me his last copies when I was making this. Let's see, where is that one? Is it? Oh, it's in the ballet. Right there. Is this?
No, that was there was something that almost looked like it started with a Fraktur B,
Yeah, the
but
Bach.
and then maybe it was the Bach piece, yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it just went crazy.
Well, that would be
It was at the beginning somewhere,
it should be down.
but
Oh,
It's
sorry,
white on black.
right there. No?
No,
no, it was a different.
earlier.
It had something that looked quite a bit like Fraktur at the
It was
beginning.
for it was for Bruidkopf en Hertel.
Oh. Right. Let's see what maybe it's in Michael's booklet. Not a lot of not that one.
Did
That
I don't think I didn't take a screenshot. I'm sorry.
it's not this. I don't know what that first letter is. Oh, dream. It's a D. Dreamer.
Dreamer.
Dreamer. Not
Yeah, there it is,
this
isn't
one.
it? No, the below.
Oh yeah, right. The next page. There you go. That's the one. Yeah.
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 I love that. It's the same
Well,
tool. He suddenly transitions to a different script completely, different style.
and then he goes into type. But I'm sure he just done the whole thing since he was working for Brightcloth and Martel on staff. Um,
Very nice.
well, when I was putting this together, I really began to think it'd be nice if we could find some people in the type world who might want to carry some of these unfinished ideas through.
But that Saint-Exupéry quote, so is that type or is that original, an
No,
original calligraphy?
And I believe that's one at the SFPL.
Okay. Okay.
That one is
Beautiful.
right here, right? This one.
Yes. That's it. Yeah. So that's an original piece. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Or I mean, but I mean it's not type.
no.
I was surprised when I first came across this aspect of his work, which I think was when we were putting on the 1999 show in at Fordham. I hadn't seen pieces like this by him, and you know, Popple did one book jacket that I've got that's in this like this in the 60s. So I mean, I'm sure he must have learned the technique and maybe even the tool from Popple. And that's what always impressed me about the Schriftkunstler tradition is how broad the training and learning was. I mean, the American calligraphers, wouldn't have been doing stuff like this back in the 70s or 80s, maybe today. I mean, John Stevens certainly can carry it out, and probably Julian Waters. But usually, people who do calligraphy don't think about neoclassical letter forms as part of their heritage, unless it's copperplate, script. This is copperplate print.
Yeah.
So is Plato a commercial typeface or?
No, Plato, which is what I call it because that's the most common name of it, Plato or Platon, which I guess is German for Plato. This is a detail I think from the Antoine Exupéry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, the Plato it's been one of my favorite styles of his ever since mid to late 80s. And he went farther with that than anything else as far as I can tell. That's right, yeah.
He based it on that style. Beautiful style.
He didn't try it with the ragged edge, which I love, the ragged edge. And I don't know whether, this is just Werner's innate conservatism or, didn't think that, this is what the typeface should be different from lettering. I mean, this is nice, but it's definitely not as lively as that.
And so the bottom is the typeface. I see.
One version of it. Here's this Plato 42. There's no Plato 42. It's probably the one called Lapidar Schneider.
Mm.
I think it's the light one, this one, Lapidar Schneider light.
But these weren't published, were they?
No, I just have work in progress files he sent me in 2009.
Oh,
Copies.
I'd snap it up in a minute.
Well, I can share. I think I can share them with you, Carl. I mean, they're old files. The fact that they still work, I'm happy because my old Howard Glasser font files don't work. I don't know what format he put them in.
I've got Howard's. I've got 4 or 5 of Howard's, but I thought I sent those to you.
I got them from Howard when I wrote an introduction to his catalog about his work. It was like 2004 or so.
Well, I used his typefaces when we did that story on him, back in what was it, 2016.
If you've got them in working, PostScript form, I can use them. I don't know what they're in, Illustrator, something.
I've got 4 that are PostScript, I think, 4 or 5.
All right, they're on my other computer. I will see what I've got, but there's a thin italic. There's at least an uncial, maybe 2 uncials.
I'm more interested in this sans serif thing here, but I'll trade you Schneider.
Blackletter swap meet. Going from a brunch to a swap meet. Well, maybe we could talk to Charles Nix at Monotype. I see. I think I put him on the invitation list, but I probably didn't come today because Monotype now owns Linotype, and Berthold, I guess, is still independent. I have no idea what's happened to them.
Berthold is still selling typefaces, and they are expensive. I'd really love to replace my.
They've not changed their typefaces in like 15 years. It's basically, I think just a holding company and a bank,
Well, 300, 4 weights post. Wow.
Yeah.
Nothing like Elmo's though. Elmo's Foundry.
I have Elmo's original typeface. Might be a beta version, Elmo.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear it.
I
It
have
sounded.
your, I have your original typeface.
Oh, yes.
I think
Yeah.
it might be beta. I don't know. Every once in a while I use it because I really like the italic.
Yeah. Well, it's a long time ago, you know.
I know it's like 1995 or something.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Well, if anybody else got anything else to add? I guess Katerina couldn't make it today.
Well, maybe I can say something about a book and the. I'm probably you know this book, but there's also a chapter about his process of how he does make some things with sketches and all things like that. You know, so
Oh, I think I have that book.
that's very interesting about his working process.
Ah,
Now,
So it's edited by Peter Holiday. It's a very common book, I think, but it's very nice.
I, to- I'm sure it didn't occur to me to go look there for something about him. Well, there's obviously a lot more we can do to honor Werner. But
And there's also, do you know this book? It's completely written with in it's a printed
that's,
book.
that's the one that Gunter, that Breen put out.
It's printed in Portland, Oregon,
No, but Breen published it.
published in the US by the Alcuin Press. Is that from Breen?
I think Breen was the one who did that originally.
Okay.
Yeah, I do have that. But now you remind me of things I've totally forgotten about already. Now, Alcuin Press in Portland was, I think, John Lawrence, a classmate of Charles Bigelow and Sumner Stone.
Well, well,
But I can't read that, but isn't that entirely in German?
it's in English.
Oh, maybe there's more than one version.
It's called the Reflections of Jonathan Pierce.
I think it was a Breen project. Yeah, Jonathan Pierce Plowman or something. Yeah.
Okay. This is the. Can you see it or
Paul's sharing his screen, so we
Oh,
can't spotlight you. There we go. Yeah.
the Reflections of Jonathan Pierce?
I've got that. I've got that, at least one copy. I might have two. There might be a German version. I don't remember. Yeah, it's like 89 or something.
Reflections of Jonathan Pierce.
Completely written. Well, it's a long text written I think with a ruling pen or with a reddish pen on turned upside down. I don't know. I think it's a ruling pen, but it's a very long text. Second hand. Oh yeah, yeah. This published and laid out by Bream.
Yeah, I thought he was
86. Yeah.
maybe
68. I mean,
we should have invited Bream.
86. 86.
Should have invited Bream to this event. Didn't occur to me.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Elmo. You're reminding me of things I totally forgot about.
Yeah. Okay.
Did anyone have any more questions?
That was great, Paul. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you, Carl. I was eager to do this because I've always loved Werner and his work. And after he passed away, I thought we should do something to remember him. I was surprised when Raoul said he didn't even know Werner's name. I thought, okay, we definitely have to do this.
Yeah.
And then I figured also, Carl, that maybe you'll do an issue of Alphabet.
Good. Next year.
No, no, I know you've got the 50th anniversary all booked up for probably the next 6 years.
Well, this year at least, this volume, got it figured out or started.
But we can get a head start on 2026. we can share work from Elmo has been showing, and pens and other stuff.
As long as we're talking about Elmo and Schneider, and Jan Bros, I have to tell you, the first time I went to Jan Bros's house, Yves Leterme took me, and we were looking through the flat files, and Jan Bros had practically only Werner Schneider and Hans
Hans Schmid?
and Elmo. And we were looking through all the flat files, and I said, "Is there any calligraphy at Elmo's house?" Because there was a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, well, when Werner visited there, he took a lot of original works, and well, what Paul also explained is that he didn't retouch his free work, but he made a lot of copies, a lot of versions, and sometimes he bring them with them, and he gave them to Jan and to me, so that's why I have quite some stuff from him, and yeah. He was not very happy with it, so there were just free written things, and so he gave them away. So, yeah.
There's also a lot of work by Werner Schneider at the Berlin Calligraphy Collection, isn't there? I'm going to visit the Berlin Calligraphy Collection in January, so
Wow.
I'm going to try to take a look at that there.
Look
Yeah,
up
I don't know about the collection because it was, I think, being started about the time that I last saw Werner, which was 2011. He was mentioning, I think Mrs. Frau Poppel was one of the instigators of that collection.
Um, and Burgert, Hans-Joachim Burgert, I think.
Hans-Joachim Burgert, yeah, Friedrich Poppel and Werner Schneider.
Yeah.
look at the Hans Schmidt stuff. Get pictures.
Yeah.
Hans Schmidt.
Definitely the Hans Schmidt stuff.
Yeah. Great. So many of the books that you talked about today are on sale on Paul's website, paulshawletterdesign.com. And some of them are downloadable as PDFs, I believe, and others are actual print books. You can also find many original Schneider pieces at the San Francisco Public Library. If you're located in the San Francisco Bay Area, go up to the Book Arts and Special Collections Department on the 6th floor of the main branch, and you can contact them at bookarts@sfpl.org to let them know that you're coming and request the pieces that you'd like to see. The next Blackletter Brunch will be on Sunday, the 24th of November. The presenter is still up in the air, but I will be announcing that shortly. Thank you. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Raoul, for hosting this.
Yeah, and I'll be sending out the link to the recording shortly. Okay,
Thank
you, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you, Elmo.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Rachel.
Thank you very much.
It was great.